Hey gang, it is Tuesday morning, TMT, Tuesday morning transformation, and that transformation is in a mindset. This is a transformation in a mindset. So here's a question. Hey, with all the things going on in the world, have you had enough yet? Have you just had enough? Because I live in California, Governor Newsom locking everything down again, man. So, hey, there's no more important time right now than to remember that we are all divinity first, living a human life. We are divinity living in our humanity. And when we realize that we're spirit first and we can see the human experience, then our belief systems change. We have a more empowering belief system. And then what's going to be the benefit of that? You live with more confidence. You don't live in fear because you know your life has a bigger purpose. That's number one. You believe that because they are spirit first, you have an unshakable self-esteem. That means you don't doubt yourself because you know who you are. You are divinity first. It helps you see things in the world from a more enlightened perspective and within yourself, and you don't get immersed in the problems of the world, right? So what's the next one? You don't do what you're told by people because you do what's according to your life purpose and what's according to your core values. Your core values are stronger. Who you believe you are is stronger. Your self-esteem is stronger. So you just don't follow anybody. You do your homework, right? You pick your leaders more specifically. You end up thinking with higher emotional intelligence. Why? Because you don't have an unshakable self-esteem. You don't look to the world to define you. Your identity comes from the inside out. So you actually think with more emotional intelligence, and you don't fall prey to the self-destructive beliefs of other people because your beliefs and core values are stronger. You do your research. You don't blindly follow the herd. Your core values are stronger, and one of the most important things is you pick the people that lead you far more specifically because you have independence. And so what I want to go through today is really, have you had enough yet? I mean, I'm a healthcare provider. I coach doctors. So we take responsibility. So we want to know, and I know that I am divinity first. Do we live in our humanity, have human moments? Of course. But the bottom line is, because of you are more powerful than you think, right? We have the tools where we can come back to our divinity when we're living in our humanity. And right now in today's world, what you believe about yourself is going to determine today literally life and death situations. It's going to be life and death, and it truly is, and I'm going to show you why. So what I want to do is I want to go through hard foundational science of things that I research all the time that are not from sources that have a personal or political agenda, but through independent, true science-based resources. So let's go through that today. Number one, for the third time, the head epidemiologist at the World Health Organization just said asymptomatic patients that even if they test positive are non-contagious. Asymptomatic patients are non-contagious. What's that mean? You're not going to go out into the public with asymptomatic people and you're not going to get the virus from it. Asymptomatic people, one, they're not only the World Health Organization, but a Chinese doctor in the Medical Journal of Respiratory Disease took an asymptomatic person, exposed them to 455 people. Not one person tested positive. They waited 2 weeks, did the whole incubation. So you're not going to get it just running around outside. Second thing, New England, so why are we wearing masks? And I'm going to get into that in a second. New England Journal of Medicine, the primary means of transmission is face-to-face contact for 10 to 30 minutes. Okay? So let me ask you a question. Are you going to go to the grocery store, go to the gym, and stand in front of somebody like this and breathe in their face or have them breathe in your face for 10 to 30 minutes? Of course not. Which means what? When you're out in the public, you're not going to get it from anybody. It's got to be face. This is one of the top medical research journals, face-to-face contact. Now check this out. Anybody that has kids come home sick, they go to daycare. Why? Because they're interacting and all this stuff, lots of contact with other kids, and you're holding your baby and they're breathing in your face while they're sleeping. That's why parents get sick. Okay? Why do you get sick? Because you're exchanging big, wet, sloppy kisses with them, and you have like fluid exchange, you're breathing in your face. That's why parents get sick. Now, how many times someone in your family sick and nobody gets sick? Because you have a strong immune system. It's face-to-face contact. Why are we wearing masks? If it's face-to-face contact, well, then you think, well, people can breathe, and I'm going to walk into their breath, or they can cough and sneeze. Now, that's a means of transmission. If someone coughs and sneezes in your face, now, are you going to go to the grocery store and an asymptomatic person go, wachoo, right in your face? I mean, that doesn't happen. Are you going to do that to someone else? That doesn't happen. So you can't get out in public. Well, you know, when you breathe, it comes out. And yes, you can breathe into a petri dish. And if you are corona positive and you're symptomatic, yes, it'll grow in the petri dish. You can also breathe through a mask and grow it in a petri dish. But here's the deal. New England Journal of Medicine, top research journal, respiration is not a means of transmission. That means, yes, can it be in your breath? Of course, but it's in such low concentrations, the wind blows, you have air conditioning, all these things, it's not a means of transmission. Contact is not a means of transmission because concentration is a means of transmission. Now, if someone breathes in your face, face-to-face contact for 20 minutes, yes, with a symptomatic person, that could be a means of transmission. So these are top medical research journal that all the politicians know about, yet now what do? Well, the research says it isn't. There's no research that actually says you can get it through respiration, you know, just out in public, but we think it can. That's not science. Opinion is not science. Well, we really don't know, but this top medical research journal says you can't. That's speculation. Speculation and fear is not science. So why are we wearing masks? Because we're running around in fear. By the way, Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, April 20th of this year, in conjunction with the New England Journal of Medicine, said masks are a symbolism. They're a symbolism to reduce the anxiety of the general public in the midst of a pandemic, which we're not in a pandemic. Now, I just flew from Atlanta, Delta Airlines. Guess what their announcement was? We ask that you wear masks as a symbol to help people feel safe. Delta Airlines, we made it mandatory so you can help other people. Now, here's the thing about divinity. You know, if other people want to have cognitive dissonance is you develop a belief system, which the government and CNN, by the way, who funds CNN? Who funds mainstream media? Their biggest funding source is Big Pharma. So who's going to profit from this? We're going to talk about that from a second. So their biggest funding source, Gates, is tied with CNN, a known genocidal person with genocidal intentions. So all mainstream media is being funded. Is that your source of science? That's why we go to independent, like New England Journal of Medicine. Okay? So we already know you can't get it from just breathing in a grocery store. It has to be face-to-face contact. A symptomatic person basically have to cough and sneeze in your face, and you're probably not going to go to Whole Foods and start making out extensively with other customers in the store, okay? This is how ridiculous this is. Now, what's the next thing? Okay, cases are rising. Oh my God, we're shutting down California again. All these small businesses have hair salons, nail studios. By the way, this is 80% of California, small business. Why is Costco open then? Why are big businesses, are they funding politicians? I mean, what's the deal? Why do we shut down the economy? Cases is not death rate. Science is death rate. Cases, hey Heather, how you doing? So I'm getting all fired up. Sorry, I didn't keep up on that. Cases are not death rate. Why, when the virus came out, death rate, death rate, death rate, death rate. Now all of a sudden, guess what? As of July 6th, today's what, the 13th or 14th? July 6th, the death rate is down 92%. It's almost gone, right? So nowhere in science do they ever do cases, because cases represents herd immunity. Okay, guess what? So the goal was herd immunity. So what's that mean? 60% of the we get 60% of the population exposed, then you have herd immunity. We have 330 million people in America. That means about 200 million people are exposed. That's herd immunity. We have 57,000 confirmed cases. Now let's look at the testing. The testing, when the test first came out, had a 15 to 50% false positive. 50%. Now what they're finding out, it's up to 81% false positive. And you're looking at cases with an 81% false positive. And you're calling that science? That's not science. And plus, originally from the death rate, a person could get, and I know this for a fact because I have friends, doctors and nurses that work in emergency rooms and ICU. And I call them and check on them. Hey, this guy got shot in the head. We tested him for COVID. He's positive. What do they have to put? Cause of death. COVID. Why? They get paid for it. Hospitals get paid. The doctors don't even like it, but this is a directive. So you guys, I don't even need to get into that. You have a test that is 81%, up to 81% false positive, and you call that science? What are you doing? What are they doing? Do you think there's another agenda here? Here's how viruses work. They either go away on their own. It's called humidity. It's called heat. Science shows the virus half-life rapidly declines in a temperature over 70 degrees. Where you live, is it over 70 degrees right now? The virus isn't around. Okay? It's dying off so fast. Well, look at hospital visits are going up. Why? Because if you had cancer 3 months ago, you couldn't go to the hospital. But now, because of herd immunity, now you go to the hospital, you go in with a headache, you go in with diarrhea. Okay, think about this a year ago. If you had got injured and you went to an emergency room, how long are you going to wait in the emergency room? Why? Because the lobby is loaded with people with hospital visits. Now, I know an emergency room nurse, friend of mine in LA County. Guess what she says? We bring them in, we test them, we dismiss them. Is that a hospital visit? Does that mean the hospitals are overwhelmed? Does that mean they got checked in? Listen to what's being monitored, cases and visits. That's not science. That's not science. There was a video of a nurse that showed, you know what? I noticed I'm testing everybody and everybody's proven positive. She took 10 tests, didn't swab anybody, ran the test, 10 out of 10 became COVID positive. She brought her nurses, hey, look what I found. They ran 10 more, didn't test anyone, didn't swab them, ran the test, 10 out of 10 became positive. How's a person positive today, negative tomorrow? The tests are completely inaccurate, and they err far in the side of false positives. So in this country, we have 57,000 cases. Well, we're not even close to 200 million. So we should be celebrating, not locking down. So last week, Governor Newsom gets on the news. Oh, by the way, we see the spike in testing, although the death rate is the lowest it's ever been. And the reason we're seeing these cases is because we're just testing more people. So that's why we need to lock down. Really? Like, as he's saying it, you're going, what is he talking about? And people are panicking. We have mandatory masks. The governor does not have a legal jurisdiction to affect your health. They can't make healthcare decisions like that. Now, if they pass it, it becomes an executive order. But here's the deal. You have rights. And so we all have responsibility. So the question is there a virus out there? Yes. Now, here's the other science about viruses. Every time they mutate, they get weaker. So now, every time it mutates, and it's mutated over 30 times, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and this is why viruses disappear. This is why the half-life is killed. Now they say there are studies that show masks are effective. Well, here's the deal. The number one, and these are RCTs, random controlled trial studies. That way, this is real science. It's an RCT. We'll get this. Now, if you read it, which you probably don't because you're a healthcare provider, or not a healthcare provider, which which this is why I'm sharing it with you. The number one factor that affects this, the variable, is humidity. So when you do it from city to city, it automatically eliminates it because you have different levels of humidity, so you're going to get different results. The test out of Germany tested 3 cities. 2 out of the 3 cities, there was no effect on the mask. The one city that had different weather, and they were more strict about locking down. 2 variables. I just read a random control trial yesterday that masks are effective, and guess what they said? Well, we're not really sure, because what we can't control, since people don't wear masks at home, and that's a primary means of transmission, we really can't say. Okay, so random control means you're controlling the variables. So now there's so many variables. If you take out the C, control, out of RCT, what you're left is RT, random trial. That's not science. So the mask studies have to be done in a vacuum. They can't control all the variables. So all this stuff is not scientific. Well, they say this and they say that. It's not opinion. This is science. Now, why is this important? 2 reasons. Now, Gates is still trying to pass HR 6666. What's that mean? They can come to your house, test you, and if you test positive, they can pull you out of your house. Right there is trying to pass this as a law, to pull you out of your house and put you in a government safe, secure. Guess what secure means? Your family doesn't know where you're at. It's a government safe, secure location. That means you can't be visited. Your family doesn't know where you're at. So here's why the mask thing is important. Okay? So if it's a symbol, it's really enslavement. What it is a means of control to keep you in fear. So you have cognitive dissonance, meaning your brain has your reticular activating system. So you believe virus, fear. What are you not going to see? All this stuff that I told you that's everywhere, but your brain's not going to cue into it. See, that's the whole point. That's what I can't accept that. Well, I'm telling you, here's what's going to happen. If you buy into the virus and you buy into the mask, and tons of research shows masks are ineffective, it's only a symbol. Even the Fauci and the CDC, the NIH, the World Health Organization, New England Journal of Medicine, all these things say they're not effective, right? If you're going to buy into that, then when they show up at your door, you may say yes. And if there's herd immunity and you're asymptomatic, even though asymptomatic carriers are not contagious, they're going to pull your ass out of your house. They're going to test your kids. And what's the death rate of kids all the way up to teenagers, almost 20 years old? 0. That's what it is. If it's 0, now here's another thing about the vaccination. They will vaccinate you right there. So if you say yes, they will vaccinate you. Have you studied the effects of an RNA vaccination? First of all, RNA comes and changes your DNA. It will change the genetic structure of every future generation of your family. 1, you change genetic structure. 2, there's a 97% infertility rate in females. That means if you're a woman of childbearing age, you'll have a 97% chance of becoming infertile. How do we know? Gates already did it in West Africa. It's already been done. When he put DPT vaccinations, they already experimented with this, 97% infertility rate. So all you millennials, we're going to take a stand, and I'm young, and we're going to get the vaccination. What do they tell you when you're in this? Don't reproduce. Why? Because they know. 97% chance of infertility. So go ahead, jump right in line. Number 3, RNA vaccination. For a child that has 0% of dying and even becoming symptomatic, right? Very small percent of even becoming symptomatic, it increases the death rate to 0.6. Now, they've already done it with messenger RNA vaccination in the Philippines. They put these messenger RNA things into into an influenza virus, injected 100,000 kids, 600 kids died. That means you go from nothing to a 0.6% death rate. Now your kid, why is the kid wearing a mask? Because everything I just said, they're not going to get coronavirus. Why are schools closed? The kids they're not going to get coronavirus. They're not susceptible, and even if they get it, asymptomatic. And then you're going to say, you know what? I want to protect my kids. Protect them by understanding what the heck you're doing. Now, does vaccination produce antibodies? Yes. But then they found in these studies, when they get a wild exposure, meaning you're out in the environment, you get exposed to coronavirus, which they've been around for, coronavirus has been around for 70 years, it increases the effect exponentially. That means you don't get a little bit sick, you don't get asymptomatic. You are laid out, done. You are at home, you are sick, you're going to feel like you're going to die, and you may have already felt that way when you got sick. It'll be 6 times worse. Do you really want to do this? Because the agenda, who's this agenda being driven by? Gates Foundation, a multi-billionaire that has genocidal intentions, that already said, I think it was 2015, we want to reduce human population by 20%, and we're going to use vaccination. Why do they have you wearing a mask? Why do they go from death rates to cases? Because they can't prove that this is working. They can't prove that coronavirus is actually an epidemic. So what do? The CDC, what did the CDC do? Oh, oops. By the way, the CDC, who's supposed to come up with the science that determines what happens in the country and the economy and tells the politicians what we're supposed to do, oops, we accidentally took the positive COVID test, by the way, which has an 81 up to 81% false positive, and we accidentally mixed in the positive antibody people. So we took the positive antibody people, which means what? You're creating antibodies, you're immune. We accidentally mixed it in with the positive test. How would research scientists that are determining what happens to the health and economy in this country accidentally, all over the country in states, California admitted this, we accidentally combined them and elevated the level of cases, not death rate, of cases. Now, what's everything done? You combine those 57,000, you just proved that we already hit our goal. You just proved that we have herd immunity. And what they do, they scare the shit out of people, because now I walk outside a month ago, hardly anybody in California had a mask. Now, everybody has a mask. Everybody's wearing it because what are they buying into? Well, it's mandatory. It's against the law. It's against the law. Now, what's the difference? If you're living in here humanity and you're following the herd, when those people show up at your door, because it's already happening in some states, when they show up at your door and you get that needle prick in you and you're positive, if this passes, say goodbye to your family. Say goodbye to your wife. Say goodbye to your husband. Say goodbye to your kids. You're going to try and protect your kids. The death rate is 6 times greater. There's 0 death rate in your kids. And if you don't understand this, this is a life and death situation. Now, here's your responsibility and here's my responsibility. Will I get people that say I'm full of shit? Probably. Am I going to get haters? Maybe. But what's your responsibility? Every time you put that mask on your kid, every time you put that mask on, what you're saying is I buy into this, that I believe this bullshit, that when they come to my door, I may run to a vaccination, and maybe you won't run to a vaccination. But if you don't stand up for your rights, what you're doing is you're following a herd that's going into the slaughter. And now guess what? Spain, they just finished their professional basketball season. Other countries are back to normal and they don't see all this. So why do we do this? How can Illinois have a quarantine, yet Wisconsin, why is it certain states they have all these cases and you go across a river and Iowa's totally open? Is the virus that smart? God, viruses don't cross the river. How can you have Illinois, completely blue restricted state, Wisconsin's totally open, Iowa on the other side is totally open, they don't have near the problem, yet Illinois does. Why is that? Why is that? Okay, so the whole thing is, I'm not going to go into this. The question is, who do you believe you are? Right now, we are in the midst of making life and death decisions. The United States has the biggest freaking problem, and we're the only country that has an election coming up. You know, when riots were the agenda, all of a sudden nobody cared about coronavirus. When the election's over, depending on who wins, nobody's going to care. But if you allow these bills to be laws, And if it does become a law, if you don't stand up for your rights and you inject that stuff into you, you will pay the consequences. Where does it start? With the mask. The emotional, psychological enslavement starts with a mask. And so we get to make these decisions. I choose not to do that. I am corona positive. I am corona negative. I've already been tested. I am asymptomatic. I am personally not a threat to anyone in the community. I choose not to buy into this because I know who I am. I know God is bigger. How about you? So here's the thing. Don't even get tested. But if you do that, you go into the contact tracing system, and if this bill passes, you will be the first one that they will go to your house because you already tested positive. That's what you're getting into. This is science. These are independent sources. So what I'm bringing to you is what's really going on, because if you buy into the agenda, you're making a life and death decision. We are about life. We are about power. This is way beyond constitutional rights. It actually infringes on the constitutional rights. This is about who you are, divinity and humanity, understanding that we have everything inside us that's greater than everything outside us. We don't buy into evil. We buy into God-given identity. We buy into who we really are, how we want to live, and the world that we're going to create as we go from an old paradigm into a new paradigm. And if you're not an activist today, you're going to end up being a victim. And that's not who we are. We are not the victim of humanity. We are the power of our divinity, and we have a voice. So I would ask that you would share this all over. Let's get this information out. Let's empower people, and let's live to who we really are, because you are more powerful than you think. All right, you guys. Love you. Thank you.